Good morning, everyone. We would like to invite everyone, all our listeners, and turn any time. Today we're going to be starting from Daf Nun Daled, Nun Gimel, and Beis, the bottom. Yetz Hashem, go until the end of the Perek, Samach, Amud, Beis. Let's jump right in. We're on the bottom, Nun Gimel, and Beis, Amar Yirmiyah, Bira, Amar Rav Yehuda, Haiman, Deshada, Lifta, Beipili. You have a person that threw in a turnip, he threw in a seed into the ground. The Ara de Ger, it belonged to a Ger in its Hefker. And he thought he wants to do what his purpose is, to make a Kinyan. Zok the Gemara, Loi Havi Chazaka, this is not considered a Kinyan. Why? Because Loi Asa Klum is Zok the Rashbam, he did not do anything. Shari Loi Asa Shum Tikun Bekarka. He did not do anything, therefore it's not going to be a good Kinyan. My time is Zok the Gemara, Be'idna the Shada, the time he threw in this little seed, Loi Havi Shvacha. There was nothing happening. Hashta de kashavach. Now that it grew, we say memelo kashavach. Amar Shmuel, Haiman de fashach dikla. Someone who removes branches and he wants to be kaineh. So I dieted the dikla. Kani, if he had das to be kaineh the dikla tree, it's not a problem. I dieted the chavasa. However, if he took it for animal food, loy kani, he is not kaineh. So for Ekdamar, heichi dami, how could we ever know when a person has the maisa for a kinyan for the dekel or for food? So Zaktin Mar Shako Mahai, if he takes it and he's basically pruning the whole entire tree, cutting all around the branches, Adaita the Dikla, then we clearly see he's doing it for the dekel tree. However, Kula Mechad Gisa, if he only does it from one side, Adaita de Chavasa, and therefore he will not be kaineh. And Shmuel continues with another din. Haiman de Zachizachaya, so when he's sweeping all the debris from the field. So adaita the arakani, if he's doing it to clean up the field like that, the machresha is not going to get stuck into all the debris. The halach is kaini. However, adaita the tzivi loy kani. If his das is for the firewood, then avadi is not kaini. So again, heichi dami for Gemara, how do we know? And that the Gemara responds by saying shako ravravi vizutri. If he removes the entire debris, even the small little twigs, that means the big twigs and the small twigs, adaita da'ara, we clearly see that he's cleaning the entire karka. However, the entire sada, shako ravrvi. However, if all he does is take the big trees, the big branches, v'shavak zutri, leaves the small little twigs, adaita detzivi, then Avada was saying he's doing it for the firewood. V'araya, he's now willing to schlep for the little twigs. V'amashmul, another halacha, haiman, the iskil tikla. Someone who's removing all these obstacles. Adaita da'ara kani, adaita debei dari laikani. If he's doing it for the karka, then avadi is kaini. However, if he's doing it for the threshing floor, temporary threshing floor, that it doesn't need to be perfectly elevated and perfectly flat the ground, then avadi he's not kaini. And the Rashbam is ma'isif that avada, if we see that he's doing it for a debei, for a goyrin kavua, he's planning on leaving it there. Zok the Rashbam that avata the kani the elcha chazaka gdoila mizu. So frakdamar heichi dami. What's the case again? How do we know if he's doing it for this temporary threshing floor, or if he's doing it for the sada in order not to get stuck? So frakdamar shaka mulya v'shada ben natza daitadara. There's basically little heaps of ground. There's little holes. There's ditches. So you have to flatten the ground completely. So if he does a perfect job, he makes sure all the heaps are flattened by putting into the holes and flattening the ground, then avada daita da'ara. However, molya v'natza daita beidari, which literally means just the heaps to the heaps and just filling up the holes. However, the point that the Gemara is trying to say is that he's not doing a perfect job. Rather, he takes the heaps, the little bundle and the little things, and he fixes it up a little. It's enough. That avada, the Gemara is saying that avada, it's good enough. For the goyrin, the beidari, it's good enough, that flat ground. Avada for a karka, a person would be much more makbid. From there we see that you're not kaineh. Another halacha of Amar Shmuel, ahai man de pasach maya. Someone who opens up a channel of water into a person's sada, the halacha is ba'ara, into the land, into the sada, daita da'ara kani. If he's doing it for the shvach of the sada, like that, the sada will have irrigation, will have water. Avada, he's going to be kaineh. However, daita the kavri like kani. If he's the only purpose why he's doing it is for fish to come through the sada, and he's going to have nets over there, then avada is not kaineh because it has nothing to do with the karka. So again, frak the Gemara heichi dami. How do we know this? On that the Gemara explains, pasach trei bavi chad ma'ayil v'chad mafik. That means he opened up. On the right side of the field, he opened up a channel of water to come in, and he opened up on the other side, opposite, also a hole for the water to leave. Then avaita the kavri, then avada the das is for the fish. Like that, water comes right through, and he has a net or something blocking the exit. Like that, the fish gets stuck. So we clearly see he's doing it for the fish. However, chad bava, if he's only opening up one hole like that, the water gets into the sadi. He's doing it for the irrigation. Adaita da'ara. Adkan zoktemar vaita he itza. There was a woman, the achla dikla bitavshicha. Again, she removed branches, but unfortunately to her, she only did it on one side of the tree. Tleisa shnin, she was doing this for 13 years, so she was very confident that it's her tree. And there was a person that took advantage of this halacha, also who gave her, Rafik tu sepurt, and he went, he dug under it, under the tree a little, and he was mishabeach, the kark in the tree, and he figured now it'll be kindness because he knew the halachas. So Lamaisa, they got into a fight, so they went to Asla Kamei de Levi. They went to Levi, the Paskin, Ramila Kamei de Arvua, Kamei de Marukva, and some say he went in front of him. Ukme beyad Lamaisa gave it to the second person, even though this lady was doing this for 13 years, he still gave it to that person that came. The second person, all he did was do a minor action. Also, she was screaming, Kamei Amrla. So he answers, what could I tell you? Maya Evelach. What could I can't help you. Why? The Layachzikas, Kedamachsiki Inchi. Lamaisa, you only did it on one side. Since you weren't machzik, you never made a good kinyan. Yes, unfortunately, this second person took advantage of this situation and was able to be kainet. Amar Rav says, Atzar Tzura b'nichse ager kana. A person we learned about nichse ager, you have to do certain ma'asin to be kainet because the nichse ager has a din of hefker, he doesn't have yarshim. So Rav wants to say if a person makes a beautiful painting onto the wall that avadi is going to be kainet. Why? We see this from a Maisa. The Rav, Loikani, Laginsa, the Beirav, Elabit Surta, that's taka what happened. The way he was kainet, he had a gina. So Maisa Shahaya, he had a gina next to his Beis Medrash, and it belonged to a Ger Zokter Shbam. La Maisa, the way he was kainet was by making this beautiful drawing. Itmar on the two dots of Nundal and Aleph. Sadeh, Hamisuyemes, B'Meitzareha. You have a sadeh that has boundaries all around it. Did he want to be kainet? Once you take your spade, you take your shovel, you dig into it, it's not a problem since there's boundaries all around it. Avada v'avada, you're going to be kainet. And the Rashbam says, we're talking about nichse hager. V'shmuel amar loikana el makom mechushav avad. Zok Shmuel, by nichse hager, you're only kainet exactly where you shoveled. However, the Rashbam is meisiv in a scenario of avada where you kainet. We already learned earlier that avada v'avada you are koine all the entire sadis. Now on the Nalid on the base, however, she'eno misiyemes b'moitzareha kama. We have a valley, there are no mitzar. So until when and where we're going to Lefi Rav, Lefi Shmuel is no question, but Lefi Rav, where are you koine until? Amar Rav Papa, kid the azil, tayara, the shuri v'had. It's enough for the oxen to go back and forth, and the Rashbam says, shtei shurois al pnei kol hasadeh. Misvasa el svasa, from edge to edge, either memizach lemarif or mitzaf ledarim. Each direction, any direction you do, you will be koine the entire sad. Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, we're about to say a fascinating halacha regarding nichse oivdei kechavim harei hein kemidbar. The halacha has a din of hefker and kol hamachzik bahem zacha bahem. That means to say as follows: you have a person who sells it to the Yisrael, and the guy already received his money. And the Yid never made a kinyan. So we're in between stages. The halacha is as a din of hefker, and a person could go and be koine this karka. My time, the guy mechimati zuzili historically, when the guy already received his money, he removes himself of the property. However, you never made a kinyan. So you were never koine. Hilkach harein kemidbar has a din of a midbar of hefker. V'chol hamachzik bahen zacha bahem. And then Avadi is Zeich, and the Rashbam is Meisif. Don't think you're a grace of tzaddik. Avadi going to have Zokter Rashbam, the high sheni Rasha Mikri. You're called a Rasha. He says you're no different than an ani amahapich b'charara. Don't think to take advantage of such a halacha, Zokter Rashbam. Amalei Abaye Rav Yosef. Mi Amar Shmuel Hachi. Did Shmuel really say this halacha that is a midbar and a person can take advantage? V'Amar Shmuel. Shmuel is the one who says Dina de Machusa Dina. Whatever the halacha of the country is, the constitution, we have to follow it. Umalka Amar, the Melech says, Loi likni ara ela b'igrasa. A person cannot be cut in the land unless he has a shtar. So how in the world could we say that a person could come and take advantage of this situation? On that, Rav Yosef answered, Amalei, Anole Yadano. I don't know. Avada, the Rashbam is saying, Avada, he knows that he's going to say that he's maskim, that the din, he's maskim to the halacha, what Shmuel said, Dina de Machusa Dina. Rather, the Rashbam is Lashon is he wants to say, I know a Maisa Shaya. Of the Have Bedura de Reusa. There was a Maisa de Reusa. The Rashbam says either it's a Sheimakoi or it's a Kfar of shepherds. Be Yisrael, the Zav and Aram Oivik Kachavim. Mamish, this scenario where Yisrael bought a land for Oivik Kachavim, but As Yisrael Achrina, and came another year and took advantage, and Rafik Baporta and he took a shovel. Also came there of Yehuda. So they went in front of Yehuda to have this Zach scenario to find out what the halach is, and Ukme Beyad the Sheni Lamaisa, he gave it to the second person. On that he answers, Amalei Dura Derusa Karmas, he asked him from that Maisa. Hasam Bagi, that was a very specific incident. Hasam Bagi Mitamri Havu. They were talking about the person he was hiding these sadas. He was not paying taxes. He was evading the tax authorities. The inu gofayu loy havi tax l'malka. He wasn't paying all the property taxes. Umalka amar. And the melech is the one who says, man de yoy taxa lechol ara. The person who pays the tax, avadi vavadi, has a schos to get this karka. Rav Huna zavan ara me oivik kechavim. So Ma'aseh Gemara says Rav Huna bought karka for oivik kechavim. As Yisrael acher. Rafik Baporta Lamaisa, a different person came and he did a shovel, he did a minor Maisa to the karka to be Mishabechet. Osik Midar of Nachman, Ukme Biyadek. Lamaisa, he gave it to the second person like this halacha. Amalei, he questioned, My Daitich, where are you coming from? You're coming from Shmuel. The Amar Shmuel, Nichse, Oivik Kechavim, Harein Kemidvar V'chol HaMachsurim Zacha. No problems. You're telling me you're coming from Shmuel. If so, we're on Nunheim Ba'alef, the top of the Amid. If so, you should also go if the halacha Shmuel, like we said in Nundalat Amad Alf, the bottom, where Shmuel says, "V'Shmuel Amar like Kana Lamakam Mechushav Avad." So very nice. This person was Rafik Beiporta, but let him only be kaineh where he put the shovel in. Why is he kaineh the entire sada? Amalei answers, "Bahai, I know Kishmaites and severely. Here suddenly, I'm not going to go like Shmuel. I'm going to go like Rav Huna." The Amr Rav Huna Merav Kivan Shenikish Ba Malchush Echad Kana Kula. And the Maisa, he's ending him going like Rav Huna, that he's kind of the whole entire karka. He's going like Shmuel of Dina the Machusa Dina. Shalach Rav Huna Bar Avin. It's follows Yisrael Shalakach Sadam Oivik Kechavim. Mamish this halacha Ba Yisrael Achad V'Echzik Ba. Ein Maitzin Oisim Yadai. We're talking about Maitzi from him. V'chein Oyer Rav Avin Rabbi V'Lo V'Chol Rabbi Seinu Shavim B'Davar. That were not Maitzi from the Yad Sheni, even though he did a minor Maisa of Mishabech the karka, and he took advantage. Amar Rabba Hani Tlasmili Ishtoili Ukvun Bar Nechemyo was the Reish Galusa in the name of Shmuel Mishmei the Shmuel. The following three halachas. Number one is Dina de Machusa Dina, that we have to follow the halachas of the land. That's halacha number one. Halacha number two is Varisusa de Farsoi Admem Shnin. Rashbam brings two mahachim what that means. Rashbam either says that if a person is holding on to a karka for 40 years, even though he bought it from a guy, and we learned so a person that takes a karka from a guy, Eloi Chazaka. However, after 40 years, a person has a Kinyan Gomer. That's one mahalach. Another mahalach is that in the Persian place, a Chazaka is Gimel Shanim. However, in the Persian places, it would take up to 40 years to get a chazaka. Why? The din of the machusu sham came. That's part of the halacha is the din of machusu dina. That's the second halacha. Another halacha is v'hani zarurei dezavin ar letaksa zvini zvini. If a person, a rich yarshim, as long as they pay, if a person comes and pays up the taxes, the halacha is yekaina the karka. However, the Gemara says v'hani mila taxa. That's dafka very specifically property taxes. Aval karga loy, for a head tax that every person. We saw this in the beginning of Ashutfin on Zion and Beis. All the halachas of head taxes. That avada you cannot go and take away the karka. My taimo karka are karka of the gavri monach. That avada head taxes is based on the person, and avada you can't go. There's no shibud of karka for that. However, Rav Huna argues. Rav Huna says, Rav Huna Beredi Yeshua Amano, Afilu Sari Dekara, even your barley and your jug, Mishtabdi Lekargo, it's Meshubah to the head tax. Everything and everything becomes Meshubah. Now, a very wichtig and akuda we're about to say is that this shibud is so powerful that the melech is considered like he owns it until you pay taxes. Almost like guilty till proven innocent. It's not that you owe the IRS taxes and it's sitting in your karka. We're going to see in a moment that it's so powerful, this shibud, the machusa, that it's going to only have a din of ra'oi, that it doesn't even belong to you because there's a shibud. On that, the Gemara questions, Amr Avashi, Amr Lahuna, Bar Natsan Kashi Ba Meimar. Now we have a question that Meimushvar, Imkain, Betalto Yerushas Benoy HaBechar. You're going to be vatal the whole concept of Yerusha. Why? The Havelei Ra'oi. Because we have a halacha, we're going to see in Yeshneichlin, that a Bechar, the Ein HaBechar, Noita B'Roika B'Muchsuk. From the Psukim, we're going to see that a Bechar does not get if it's Ra'oi like a Muchsuk. Amalei. And then he answers, Hihachi Afilu Taxanami. Now there's Bamas Maisavi, but Edson could have answered, it's not so schwer. We could be talking about countries where they don't have this halacha, but he said he had an easier mahalach to answer. Shlugged him up better. He said, even why are you questioning me from head tax? I could have the exact same question against you. Why are you willing to accept property taxes? What are you going to say? You have to say that the father Avada paid up all his property taxes. I'll tell you, the Yoiv Kargu Miss and Itaka paid up his head taxes. Amar Rav Ashi, Amar Lihuna Bar Nason. Shalisinu Lisifri de Rava. I asked the scribes of Rava, who do they go like? Do they go like Rav Huna, that everything is Meshubad or Dafka, property taxes, but head taxes not? And they Taka answered me that everything and anything is Meshubad to the Melech. However, the Gemara says, Velohi, it's not really the halacha, it's not true. The scribes of Rava said this. Hasam le'ukli milshu da'amar. They were coming to defend themselves. Since they were the scribes, they would write such stories that everything and anything is Meshubah. So therefore, they decided to say the halacha is like Avuna, but Avada, the halacha is not. And Dafka, property taxes, is Meshubah to the Melech, but not head taxes. The Omer of Ashi, we're going to see another halacha, Pardaches, which is Dr. Ashbam, it's Adam Batum Malacha. He's not really helping society too much, and he has to pay, doesn't have money, and he has to pay taxes. And what happened was, the halacha is, Mesayem Masa. He has to chip in if the taxes go up. We're going to see in a moment exactly what happened. But he has to chip in, he has to pay. However, the Gemara says, Vahani Mili Datsilse Masa. That's talking specifically, when does he have to pay back? Is when they went and they approached him for money. However, all the people in the city said he doesn't have money and we're going to pay the difference. So Vada he has to pay in the back. Avalandinsky, Siyata Deshmayi, what's that mean, Dr. Shbam? Either they didn't want to ask him because they realized he has no money, or they pasha forgot. So in such a scenario where the city didn't come in and defend him, Siyata Deshmayi, we say Siyata Deshmayi and he's potter. Amr of Asi, Amr of Yechanan. Ha-meitzer v'ha-chotza. The meitzer is a boundary. Chotza, we're going to see, is a very specific type of plant that goes straight into the karka, and it's not typical like other plants that spread. Mafsikin b'nichse hager. The halach is, it's a boundary marker, this plant, and the meitzer, le'inyan, nichse hager, le'inyan hefker. However, of le'inyan peya v'toma loy, I'm going to see in a moment exactly what that means. Regarding peya and hilchos toma, we're going to say it's not mafsik. He also Ravin, Amr Rabbi Yechanan, afilu lepeya v'toma, it is mafsik. So Gemara right away asks, what is the scenario you're telling me, peya, where it's mafsik or not? Peya mahi. And that the Gemara says, the Tanan, it's a Mishnah, it says as follows. Ve'elu mafsikin lepeya, these are the stuff that prevent the stop peya. The halach is in peya. Every single sada you have hilchas peya, that you have to leave corners of the field. And that will be the nafkamina, is that when you have two sadas and there's a meitzah chasim between them, you're going to have to leave two peyas. So ve'elu mafsikin lepeya, hanacha, whether you have a type of water, a raven, the hashlulish or ditch, a nachal, a stream of water, v'decharabim, which is tes zayin, it's 16 amas wide, and one nun hey amid base, top of the amid v'derech hayachid, which is daled amas. And there's bamis ma'aser v'loizu abzuk tani, that avada, we didn't have to say derech hayachid, we could have learned it. However, loizu abzu, we mentioned derech harabim, we're going to mention derech hayachid. V'shvil harabim, that's a place where the rabbim walk through. Again, the kula loizuav zuktani v'shvil hayachid hakavua, whether it's bein b'moisach chamo, bein b'moisach shamim, even though in the winter that a person doesn't go there, it's still going to be mafsik. So that's the case of payah. So in such a scenario, we say yechayiv two payas. Tuma mai. What's the sugya of tuma detnan? A person anichnas lebika b'moisach shamim v'tuma b'sada ploinis. If a person went into a certain valley, went into a place where there was mace, where there was dead bodies, and he has a question. If he was mitam himself, if he went over the bodies, he's not 100% sure. Va'amar halachti lemakam halaz. I went into that specific area. Ve'eni yadayam nechnasti lo yisem makam v'imlav. I don't know if I went over this cave or not. So the halach is Rebbe Lezer mitahir. Rebbe Lezer says you're tahir. V'chachamim however mitamim. And we all know in Le'inyan Hilchos Tumah that a suffix reshus hayachid is tamei, suffix reshus harabim is tahir. So over here, the suffix is as follows. Shayir b'lezer imer suffix biya tahir. You have a suffix if the bechlal, you went into the field. The suffix magatoman, you're not even sure. Imtin salim, you went in, did you touch it? So it's a sveka, you're going to be tummy. However, Rabbanan is going to say, no, you really have one suffix. Did you touch this mace or not? Therefore, avad, it's only one suffix, and you're going to be chayiv. Okay, very good shmak. Aval Shabbos loy. Regarding Hilchos Shabbos, then we're going to say a meitzer achotzav is not mafsik. Rava mafilu in Shabbos. Rava is going to say even a meitzer achotzav is going to prevent that. It's going to prevent you from Hilchos Shabbos. I'm going to see the Tanya. What is the case of Shabbos that it makes a difference on meitzer achotzav? Now we have a brayso that says as follows: Hoitzi chetzi gregeres l'shus harabah v'nicha v'chazav hoitzi chetzi gregeres acheres. And there's halacha of Eitzah on Shabbos. One of the Lamites Malachas, if a person does Eitzah on Shabbos, Mershus l'Rshus is chayiv. However, there's a Shiur, and that Shiur is a Shiur of a Gergeres. So what happens when you went and you did half of the Shiur and you did it twice? So you did 2 return trips. So Be'elem echad chayiv. B'shnei elam is potter. That means to say is if you did it with one das, you knew that it's also doing on Shabbos and you did it twice, that avadi v'avadi chayiv. However, b'shnei elam is potter in a scenario, the first time you didn't chap at Shabbos, and the second time you went, you forgot the halacha of Eitzah. In such a case, you're potter because you never did a Shiur mali. However, Rabbi Yaisi argues, and this is what we're going to bring it for. Rabbi Yaisi Aimer, no. Be'elem echad, then it depends. One involved him at Alf, top of the Amid. Bershos achas chayiv. If you went into the same Rishos Atzma, then the exact same Rishos Yichayev. However, Beshtei Rishuyos Potter, and this is where we're going to try to bring the Hilchos Shabbos. If it's 2 separate Rishuyos, you're going to be Potter. Rava wants to say, V'hu sheyesh chiyav chatas b'neim. It has to be a big enough for Rishos Yichayev chatas, that there's a Rishus Yachid in between the 2 Rishus Harabim. In such a scenario, that's when you're chayiv. Aval Carmelis, however, for a Carmelis, which is only 4x4 tfachim, and Midaraisa is not considered a Rishus, then you're still potter. Abaya wants to say, Abaya mafilu Carmelis. He wants to say, even in a scenario of Carmelis, you're going to be chayiv. Aval Pisla, like Pisla, Rishbam says, a plank of wood, a piece of wood. There, Kulama holds, it's a makam p'tur. In such a case, you are potter. Rava, and this is why we're bringing Rava, that wants to say Le'inyan Shabbos. Rava, afilu Pisla, even a piece of wood, is going to be chayiv. Now, where's Rava coming from to say Le'inyan Chiyav Shabbos? That if a person does such a case, Shnei Elamois, who enter Rishos Achas, you're going to be Be'elam Echad Rishos Achas Yechayiv, and then we're saying V'az the Rava L'Tamei Dam Rava Rishos Shabbos Kerishos Gittin Dami. The Rishbam brings the case in Gittin Ayin Zayman of Beis that a person was makneh his chotzer to his wife, and he went and he threw the get, and we all know the kind of biyad, so it's chatzeirai. However, where he threw the get and he ended up dropping it on a plank of wood. So the question is she considered divorce? Is it considered part of the chotzer or not? And over there we're bringing down that it's considered the pisla, it's considered a makam acher, and it's not megareshes. So on that, Rava says, just like by gittin, we find the concept, if a husband threw the get on the pisla, we consider it the rishus acheres. Huadin le'inyan Shabbos, we're going to consider a rishus acheres, and therefore you're going to be potter. So that's what the Gemara is saying, that Rava Amar Filu le'inyan Shabbos. Ain't sham zoktu mar vayter loy meitzer veloy chotzav mai. What is the halacha when there is no meitzer, there is no boundary, you don't have this plant? What is the halacha? Pirish Rabbi Merunus Mishmai Kol Shenikris Al Shemai. Any sada that's considered that entire sada. The Heichidami, how do we know when it's considered a person's sada? Amr Papi the Karle Big Arguta de Planyo. When the person says that he was getting his sole source of water from all the sadas, they called it, oh, this is Pliny sadas. Where he gets that water from, Kala Sada Zaktor Ishbam Shaya Ger Mashkami Bayrai. The halacha is Yakoine Hako B'Malkush Echad with one spade, one drop of throwing into the shovel into the ground. Yosef Rav Acha Bar Avya Kamida Rav Yasi Yosef and he was sitting in Kamish Meder Rav Asi Bechanino. Chatzuva Mafsik B'Nichse Ger. This is what we're talking about. Meitzah Chatzah. This type of plant is Mafsik by a ger. So Frak Tigmara, my Chatzuva, the Rishban says, Eze Dover, what is this? Why are we saying this plant is going to be like a Meitzer? And that's up Tigmara, Amar Yehuda Marav, Sheboy Tichem Yishol Yisrael Esaretz. When they were dividing the Sadas, the Eretz Yisrael, into the Shvatim and all the neighbors, they call Shvatim and Shvatov and everybody, Yeshua said to put this Chatzav plant, that what's he trying to send the message? Just like a Chatzav, goes straight, and it doesn't take off from neighbors' properties, who then everybody should stick to their own rishus. V'amarav Yehuda Marav leMani Yeshua la'Yara Sa'im Nisalagvulin. We learned to the end of Ashut Tezvav Yeshua Kasav Sifrei. However, there were certain cities that were not mentioned in the Sefer. Le'Mani Yeshua. So which cities were in the Sefer Yeshua? It's Dafka, the Yaris that were sitting on the borders. Amar Yehuda Mishmuel. Kol she'roa Kadosh Baruch Hu l'Moshe chayev b'maiser. Moshe Rabbeinu was not zeiche to go into Eretz Yisrael. However, the Rebbeinu Shalom brought him up and showed him the whole entire Eretz Yisrael and land surrounding it. So whatever Yeshua saw, whatever the Rebbeinu Shalom showed Moshe, now Yeshua showed Moshe, it's chayev in maiser. Zok Gemara lafuke mai. Which cities he's not chayev maiser that he saw? Zok Gemara lafuke Kini, Knizi, Vikadmoini. These three cities, even though we're Mietz Hashem, we're going to get it. Alpha Pikain, since Rebbeinu Shalom didn't show it, you're not Chaim Meiser. Some want to say it's different cities. Tanir Me'oimer, no, it's Naftucha, Arvav, Salma. Reb Yehuda, no, it's Harseir, Amon, Moyev. Reb Shimon Oimer, Reb Shimon wants to say, Ardiskus, Asya, Ve'as, Pamir, these are different cities the Machlokes is about. We're going to pick up on the Mishnah, Nun Vav, Amad Aleph, the bottom of the Amid, regarding Hilchos Hazam and Hilchos Eidos. Hayushnayim meidim oisish achla shalishanim v'nimtzu zoymim mishamlim loyisakol. You have two eidim. They went and testified falsely, and they said dafku imanu ayisem. We all know with Hilchos Hazama has to be imanu ayisem. Otherwise, it's tam eidos hachasha. There's no punishment. Torah tells us a chiddush. Dafku, we believe the second eidim. When it's Eida Hazama Vimanu Ayisem, the halacha is Mishamim Loisakol. Just like you wanted to lose in the karka, who then he's going to have to pay for the entire sada. What is the halacha when it's three separate sets of Eidim? Shnayim Berishayna, Shnayim B'Shniya, V'Shnayim B'Shlisha. So the Muchza bought three sets, one for year 1, year 2, and year 3. And the halacha is Mishalshul and B'Neim. They're all mazim in one shot. That all three sets were Eidei Hazama, they have to divide it up and they all have to pay. Shloisha Achim, what happens when you have three brothers? The Echad Mitztarfi Mohin. So Reuven, Shimon, and Levi are brothers. Reuven is made with Yaakov year 1. Shimon, the other brother, is made with Yaakov year 2. And Levi is made with Yaakov year 3. The halacha is Harei Elu Sholosh Eidus. We consider that they're Kashal Eidus. It's three separate Eidus. We're going to see extensively in the Gemara why specifically these cases. We're going to consider the brothers, even though they're made about one side, we're going to consider it a separate Eidus. However, the Ein Eidus Achas Lahazama, that Avadif, all four of them, because it's three brothers in Yaakov, they're all Eidei Hazama, they're going to all have to pay. And the halachos we're going to see is that Yaakov, who's not the brother, is going to have to pay 50%, and the rest are going to split it up. Zok the Gemara on Nunvavam and Beis, top of the Amid. Masnisin the Loika Rekiva. Our Mishnah is not going to be like a Rebbe Kiva. Why? Because Rebbe Kiva is going to want to say it's not going to help such an Eidus. We have three Kitos Shaleidim to help in a Chazaka. The Tanya, Amar Av Yaisi Kashahalach Abba Chalafta Tzar Rabbi Yochanan ben Uri Lil Matayra. When when my father Chalafta went to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri to learn Torah, V'amilas, I want to say Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, Tzal Abba Chalafta Loma Torah, they went to him to learn Torah. Amar, he said as follows: Harei sha'achla shana rishayna b'fnei shnayim. If a person had a chazaka and he ate in front of two people, shniya b'fnei shnayim, or shlishis b'fnei shnayim, ma'u, what is the halacha? Amar lai, harei zu chazaka, it's considered a good chazaka. Amar lai afani aymakein elo shebekiva. This is why it's saying it's not like Rabbi Kiva chaylik with davar zeh. Why? Shei Rabbi Kiva aymer davar v'loichetzi davar. State in the Torah that a person is taka chayev al pishnayim edem al pishleisha edem yakum davar. So it has to be that a person has to give an edus. The two edim have to give a complete entire edus. However, over here it's considered a chetzi davar. Why? Because they're not giving a chazakah. They're just saying a third of the chazakah. It takes 3 years to get a chazakah. Therefore, it's not considered a full davar. It's a good question. How is Rabbanan going to understand this? And that the Rabbanan is going to say, which means as follows: there's halacha, a girl has a din of a naira when she becomes 12 years old, and she has shtei saris in certain scenarios. We have to bring edim, whether it's leinin einchin. We have to bring edim to prove that she was a na'ara. So what happens is, when there's edim or an aid saying that the makom in the front there's a saira, and in the back there's a saira. L'chayr there's a shtei saris. They're saying at the exact same time. That we don't say it's a shuma, because if it's different times we can say there was never two saris at the same time. We're saying at the same time. And the halach is, one is saying in the front and one saying in the back. Hi chetzi davar. You tell me it's chetzi davar. Chetzi davar. Chetzi edisi. It's pashut. There's not even two edim. There's one eid saying in the front, one eid saying in the back. That about is not considered an edis. You have two sets of edim. One pair of edim saying in the front. In such a case, we're going to say chetzi davar. Amar Yehuda. Echad aymer achla chitim ve'echad aymer achla sa'irim harei zu chazak. Now, just to theorize this, by the Nara we can understand where it could be a chetzi davar. Why? Because you need to have both shtei sa'aros. What's the difference regarding chazaka? Why don't we say that chazaka l'chayra you need to have 3 years? We should look at like 3 sires. On that, the Rashbam is masber, one akuda, to really put it in one word. It's progressive. It's a time machine. And the Rashbam says, you could have even 1,000 sets of Eidim, it doesn't make a difference. Even if every single day you bring a new set of Eidim, it's still going to be considered a full Eidus. Why? Because it's a Hemshech. It's one guf, it's one Maisa, that you need to bring it at the exact same time. Let's go right to Rav Yehuda. What is the halacha when you have two sets of, you have two Eidim, and one saying it's Chitim, one saying it's a Chazaka? The halacha, the one says Sayir, one says barley, one says Chitim. On that, Rav Yehuda wants to say it's considered a chazaka. Baskevlor of Nachman elama'ata echad aimer. Frekner of Nachman. Nachman understood that Rav Yehuda is talking about a case where one aid said 1, 3, 5, and the other aid said 2, 4, 6. And the Rashbam saying that was the normal derech. That every year you flipped it. 1 year Sayir and 1 year Chitim. That's why he thought it was that case. On there, Rav Nachman says elama'ata echad aimer achlo rishayna shlishis v'chamishis ve'echad aimer achlo shnir v'yis v'shishis hachinam dav chazaka. Dr. Nachman, I don't understand. Why are you telling me if 1 says 1, 3, 5, Chitim, one says Sayim, to Chazaka, even if they say both Chitim, Frekner Nachman, it shouldn't make a Chazaka because there's no Eidus of 3 years in the row. Amalei Rav Yehuda says, no, you're making a mistake. Havada v'avada, I'm not talking about a case where the Eidim are saying 1, 3, 5. Rather, the Eidim are both saying regarding year 1, year 2, year 3. They're both saying the same Eidus. It's Eid HaChasha. One saying Chitim, one saying Sa'irin. And then he says, no. Hasam b'shata de kamasin mar lo kasin mar. In the case of 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 6, each Eid is saying different years. So there's never two Eidim saying of a chazaka of years, 3 years in a row. We need 3 years with Tzufos. However, over here the Eidim are going year 1, year 2, 3. You'll say it's Achasha, one say Chitim, one say Sa'irin. Michael made Mechiti L'Sari. No, Lava died to the inchi. People don't realize. We're not going to consider at the Eid Achasha. We're going to say about it, both saying the same Eidus. Shloisha Achin, we're on Vav and Beis, the 2 dots in the bottom. Shloisha Achin, the Mishnah says, Echem Mitzvah V'Imoin. Harei elu sholish eduyois ve'ein edos achas lehazam. That was the Mishnah. One on Zainam and Aleph, ahu shtar, there was a certain shtar, and one of them died. We're going to see that two people signed the shtar, Reuven and Shimon, and usually the halacha is Reuven can testify on himself that it's a good chasima, and Shimon testifies and everything's fine, and we get a hempick. However, what happened specifically in this case, Shachiv Chaminayu, one of them died. So now what happened was, Reuven decided he'll testify on his own edus, that it's a good shtar, and Reuven decided to bring his brother Shimon with another aid to testify against the other person's edus, or the other person's chasima. So the first person's brother also came and he brought someone else. So Savar Ravina wants to say in such a scenario, that what? Gimel Achin, in the case of three brothers, and it's not a problem. Reuven's saying on his own edus, and Reuven's brother is going to be saying on the other chasima. Now it's very wichtig to add a little more context to what's going on. State in the Torah, since we learn it, Api Shnayim Edim Yakum Davar. There's a part of the Chetzi Davar is that it needs to be that every aid, usually it's two Edim, every aid, the most damage or the most effect that his aidus can do is maxed out at 50%. It can't be that we're using an aidus of one aid to do it more than a 50% of what we need to accomplish. So that's why we have two aidim, one for 50% and the other for 50%. And now that we understand that context, that it says that you can only do up to chetzi regarding that, we can understand the issue that we're about to have. So in such a case, we want to say that there's one brother, he's doing testimony in himself, and his brother is going to be with another person in another edus. You can compare the case of our Mishnah. Which means to say is that on a literal level is over here the damage is being 75% regarding the brothers. In the Mishnah it's not. Like we said in the case of the Mishnah is that one, the stranger who's not the three brothers, is going to have to pay 50%. The other three brothers split it up. Masha'evkin over here, what's going on is one brother is being made on his own chasima. Since he's being made on his own chasima, that's 50% right there. And his other brother, an achin, regarding edus, is considered one person. So it comes out that with you and your brother, you're really accomplishing 75%. And therefore, that's going to be an issue. However, just to bring out one point, the Taisus explains, Avadi could have said an easy takana, which means all he could have done was sign it again on a different paper, and then have Eidim testifying that it's the same signature, and like that, he himself could go and testify, either leave the picture and that brother could come and get testimony, or he himself could do it like that. There's not doing a 50% effect in the beginning. However, the reason why we wanted to bring this, that Ravina wanted to say, even in such a scenario, it's mutter, because we could compare it to the Mishnah. Kamash Malon, we're saying Avad and not Rav Ashi's telling us, and in such a scenario, it's really 75%. Zok the Mishnah weiter. Elu dvarim sheyesh lahem chazaka, ve'elu dvarim she'ein lahem chazaka. We're going to start talking about cases where there's chazaka, where there's no chazaka. Now, we're talking about where a person was not meicha. In such a case, we're saying, elamai, I got this chos, tashmish. What doesn't have a chazaka? Hayamamid behema b'chatzer. If a person puts his animal into a chatzer, or tanner, an oven, rechaim, the kirayim, all these stuff are metaltalin, it's not a chazaka because the person's not makbid zakter shbam. Megadol tarnagoyim, you grow, you let your chickens grow. V'noisens villa, the chatzer ain't a chazaka. In all these cases, a person's not makbid, he always feels he can throw you out. Aval oisa mechitza l'ba'amta. If a person already does a permanent ma'isa like a mechitza, that he starts doing a mechitza around these objects or these stuff, avad is going to be a chazaka. Or hichnis tarnagoyim l'secha bayis, or into the bayis, not just the chatzah, but also makam l'zivloi. Amak shleisha gavai shleisha. Once he starts doing stuff in the karka itself, arei zu chazaka. Frektig mara. Maishna reisha u'maishna sefer. Why when it's a mad b'kdi without a mechitza it's not a chazaka, and suddenly when he does a mechitza it is a chazaka. Now, the Hamid of the Rishbam is saying, we're talking about strangers that are coming and using somebody's property. On that, Ula says, Amula, Kol shi'ilu b'nichse ager, kana b'nichse chaver kana. Kol shi'ilu b'nichse ager, loy kana b'nichse chaver loy kana. Ula wants to say, we can compare it to nichse ager. Nichse ager is hefker. And whatever the halacha would be, that by nichse ager you would be kainet, hu din hacha, nichse chaver you get a chazaka. However, if it's not by a ger, you do such a mice, it's not going to be considered a kinyan, then huadin, you're not going to be kainet this, you're not going to have a chazaka. On that, frektig mar, maskula sheishes, v'klalu. Is this really true, this klal that you're telling me that it's totally benichse hager? That can't be. V'harei nir, we all know, charisha, it's really the Mishnah. No, go the parts, kol sharei zechazaka. The benichse hager kana, benichse haver like kana. We learned this in the beginning, chaskabatim, the nir is not kinda. Very near the benichse haver like kana. Another ma'aseh we see is the opposite. Very achila is peiros, the benichse haver kana. That's exactly what Chesed Gimel Shanim is. You're eating for 3 years peiros, you get a chazaka. And benichse hager like kana, you have to do a ma'aseh on the karka. You can't just eat the peiros. So elamai, don't tell me it's told benichse hager. Elamar Rav Nachman Amar Rabba Baravua Avada is nothing to do with benichse hager. Rather, we're talking about hacha. We're on Nunzayim and Beis top of the Amid bechotzer hashutfin askinon. We're talking about chotzer shut. We're not talking about a stranger. That what? That mambada kadi like kapti. If a person just comes in, zok the Mishnah, and starts burning stuff, a person's not makbid, mashenkein, a mechitza. When you start doing a mechitza, kapti, then you're ready going to stand up. And by you staying quiet, you're not meiche, elamai did a rishos, and it's a chazak. Frektig mar, is this really true? Oh, bamada kadi like kapti, you're not makbid if a person just comes into your chotzer shutfin. V'atanan hashotvin shenadru hanaz zemizeh. You have Reuven and Hashem and the Shutfin, and they're both saying we're making a nether, you can't have enough from each other. The halacha is asurin likonis l'chotzer. You're not allowed to go into the chotzer. Now, there's Bama is masbid that if it's really true that a person is not makbid of a madik di, the lashon Bama is harei hifker sechotzer. It's a regular hefker. If so, even if I make a nether, it should be that you're able to go into the karka. Elamai, we see hamada itself, a person's makbid. And that the Gemara says, no. El Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Avua, hacha. Over here, we're talking about a person's not makbid. Berchava shalachayre abatim askina. We're talking about a backyard. V'amadik di like kapti. V'amechitza kapti. Therefore, a person, that's our case, our Mishnah, where tafka only a mechitzi makbid. Rav Papa ma'idi v'idi b'chatzah shutin. V'ika de kapti, v'ika de like kapti. In a chanami, it's not so simple. It's not so 100% if a person's makbid or not. So memela gabi memoina lakula. Regarding chazaka, we're going to say that a person's not makbid. Regarding gabi isura, or regarding maida hana, we don't have a choice. We go lechumra. Ravina wants to say loilam loy kapti. A person's not makbid. So who is this? Vamani Rebbe Lezahi. What shot with nether? The Tani Rebbe Lezahi. I feel of it asur b'maider hana. Which means to say is a person by Chenvani would always give the balabayas. If a person would always give an extra eggers. But if let's say they bought 100 mea geizim, bepruta, a person would always be meisif another 1 or 2. On that, he wants to say in such a case, a maida not even victor, which is only a gratuity, it's something extra. Alpha pikain, it's considered avada, it's maida no. Who in hacha, it is considered by shutfin shenadu, it's aser bano. However, one point we have to bring out that when the Rashbam says arei hifker sachotzer, you can't use the lashon literally hifker sachotzer. Rather, you have to say arei kid hifker sachotzer. It's like hefker because avada, if it's mamish like hefker mamish, then it's pashut to pashut that a person in such a case could, even if it's a shut of ilafir belazer, should be mutter to use the chotzer. Now we're going to start with a little more of a Gadatas Gemaras, very Geshmaka Gemaras. Omer Av Yechanam Mishum Rabbanah. In the next while, we're going to go learning the Rabbanah. We're going to see fascinating incidents regarding Rabbanah. Omer Av Yechanam Mishum Rabbanah. Bakol Shutvin Ma'akin Zeh Chutz Min HaKvisa. Shutvin could, Ein Chanami, prevent his other Shutvin from doing certain stuff in the Chatzar except Kvisa. Why Kvisa? You know why? Shein darkon shel b'nois Yisrael is basis el kvisa. If they're not going to have a place in your yard to do the kvisa, they're going to have to go to the water, and it's not tzinius. Ve'oitzim einov merois berash. State in the pasuk, someone who closes his eyes from seeing Amar Chia Barabba. You know what this is? Zeh shein mistakul b'nashim b'shah shoymedes el kvisa. It's a person that doesn't look at the nashim. On that Perek Gemara is a very famous Gemara. Hey chidami, if he had another way to do it, then he went dafka that way, he's a rasha. Then he's an einus. And if he's an einus, it sounds like why do you have to close your eyes? What do you want? I'm an einus. On that the Gemara says, there's no way of going. You should do the most ishtadlus, work in your shmir sanayim, to close your eyes. And that avad is a chassid. Zaktamar vayte boimin Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Noah chaluk shel Talmid Chacham ketzad. How should a Talmid Chacham where it's chaluk? Zaktamar called Rabbi Noah says kol sheim b'sara nir betachtav either means that it's see-through or it's long enough. Tala shel Talmid Chacham ketzad. Kol sheim chaluka nir betachtav tefach. You have to leave it enough that it's long enough that you don't even see a tefach of the chaluk. Shulchan shel Talmid Chacham ketzad. How does the shulchan of Talmid Chacham supposed to look? Shnei shlishi gedil. You cover 2/3 of it with a cloth. V'shlish galoi, the third is left empty, and we don't want the cloth dafka, so it shouldn't get ruined from the food. V'olav over there, karais, v'yerek, you have all the fruits and the vegetables, the pots and everything. V'tabasim b'chutz. Now they had a ring, a little hook, very simple hook. Now you have two options to put the hook. Either you put it where I'm sitting, kaviyach, right here's a hook, or you put it on the other side of that hook. So where's that hook going? That we're saying that tabasai is b'chutz. Now by being b'chutz, to a certain degree, there's waiters. You're getting served, and the waiters can hit it. So either you have a choice of putting it by me, the tutztam is by putting by me, where it's not comfortable for me, I might bump into it a little, I have to move away, or the waiter, someone's going to have to suffer. On that we're saying we put the ring outside. We have a right to say you put the ring, the hook, let's call it inside. On that, the Gemara says, Loi kasha. When you have a child at your table, you put it on the outside, so he shouldn't hit it. A waiter's an adult, he'll make sure not to touch it. There is no kid, so why are you putting it on the outside? When there's a waiter, shamish, then in a chanami, you put it in the inside. Since there's no waiter, you can put it on the outside. Same another Torah says, during the day he could see the hook. So therefore, for your comfort, you're going to put it over there. At night, he's going to bump into it. You have to be careful and put it near you. And it's going to be a little uncomfortable. How does the shulchan shalam haaretz look like? It looks like a fire. Everything's mishkababel. So too, that the map on the lechem is on the inside, and all the pots are around it. Top of the Amud. Mito shel tamidei chachamim ketzad. How should a bed of a Talmid Chacham look? Kol shein tachteho l'sandalim ma'isachami. Your sandals in the summer and your boots minolin, your shoes b'ma'isach shamim. Like that, a person is not gonna walk into your room. He has nothing to go in there. However, v'shalom haaretz diamond lights a bolos. It looks like a jumbled face, a whole mess of a storage room. Everything's in there. He puts his food, even though it's a ruach ra. He does whatever he wants. He puts everything under there. Dr. Mara, Rabbi Noah, we're going to start with a Maisa, fascinating Maisa of Rabbi Noah. Rabbi Noah have a komitzayin martyr. Rabbi Noah went to Kvarim to do measurements, to make sure lehilchas tuma, like that a person who would put markers, spray paint, or whatever he did, like that to know exactly where the kever was, so a person shouldn't go over it. So, Kimata Lamarta Davram, he pulls up the Maris and Machpelah, and he wants to go check out the measurements of Avram Avinu. Ashkechela Eliezer Avram. He finds Eliezer standing there, and the Rashbam says he was one of the 7 people that are still alive. So Eliezer is standing there alive. The Kohen come above, he's standing by the entrance. What is Avram doing? Rabbi asked him. He thought maybe he's davening, he's not going to disturb him. He's sitting in Sarah's arms, and she's looking at his head. Amalei Zil, go tell him. Amalei Bana Kaya Bava, tell him I'm here at the entrance. Amalei, so Avram Avinu tells Eliezer, don't worry, you can come in. Leil, why made the idea the eights of a high Amalekah? He's going to understand that even though Avram Avinu's in Sarah's hands, Kaviyachol, it's not a problem because we all know there's no Yetzahara in Olam Haba. Okay. He doesn't have to be Matzniah himself. Ayil, ayin v'nafak, l'maisi, he went in, he did his measurements, and he left. Now he wanted to go check the Mauritians cover to make sure the measurements. Yatsa Baskal v'amra, Baskal comes out and says, Nistal kalto bit musti yaikini. Who did the yaikini? The Rashbam says it was Yaakov. We're going to say Yaakov was the second generation. Shufra, the Yaakov means Shufra, the Avram Avinu. So he saw Yaakov bit Yukni Asmat Stakel. You can't see Adam Rishon. Why? Adam Rishon is Mamish, Maisa, Ribbonish Shalom, who created Adam Rishon. That itself is Yukni Atzmi, you can't look at it. And that Rabbi Noah says, Habina, let's see Unim Artzta. I have no objective. My only objective is to check out the measurements. I'm not going to be bothered with the Yakinis. I'm not going to even look. Lamaisa, and that the Basra says, don't worry, you don't need to go inside. Why? The reason why he wanted to go into Avram Avinu, he wasn't sure if Avram Avinu was more in the inside, if it's the exact same measurements, and then the Balkal says there's no reason to go out. Whatever the measurements of Avram Avinu, you could do that for Adam Marisha. Vilaman da Amr, there's a machlokes that says in Erevin, Shnei Batim Zulam Al Mazut, that it was more like a bunk bed. And that the Baskal said, Kamidas Al Yaina, Kachmidas Achtachtaina, it's not a problem, it's also the same measurements. Amr Rabbeinu, Nistakalti Bishnei Akevov. I saw the heels of Adam Marisha in the Maisa. You have to know how he saw it if he didn't get entrance. I guess you must say he saw it to a certain degree from outside the kever, because we saw the Baskal didn't let him in. V'daimim, and it looks like Shnei Galgali Chama, it looks like two, it looks like the orbits, mamish, the orbits of the sun. Zoktuk Mar Vaita Kol B'fnei Sarah, the radiance of the Rebbeinu Shalom, Kikoif B'nei Adam, it looks like a monkey type person. Sarah B'fnei Chama, Chava in front of Chava, Kikoif B'nei Adam, Chava B'nei Adam, Kikoif B'nei Adam, Adam B'fnei Ashchina, Kikoif B'nei Adam. Sorry, that's the radiance. Now we're going to talk about the beauty. Shufrei. The more the beauty, Shufrei the Avkana, main Shufrei the Rav. Shufrei the Rav is main Shufrei the Ravo. Shufrei the Ravo, main Shufrei the Akavinu. And Shufrei the Akavinu, main Shufrei the Adam Arish. And that what we see that the Yaakini was Yaakov. The Me'ed Yaakini was Yaakov, who had the Shufrei the Adam Arish. Dr. More Meisim with Rabbanah. Hahu Amgusha, there was a certain magician that he would go take out the mace and remove his clothing. I'm not sure 100% why. Kimota Matz the Rav. The Maisa, when he pulls up to the caver of Tuvi by Masna, Tafsa B'dikner of Tuvi grabbed him, this magician by the beard. Asa Abaya, Rashbam says, interesting, this magician had a good friend Abaya. Abaya was very close to this person. Amalei b'matusa minach Shafke, begging you, please release him, he's my good friend. So Shafke, he let go of him. Lashon Achrit, the guy didn't learn his lessons, magician, he tried him again. He pulls up and he grabs him. Hadar, he returns. Asa Tafsa B'dikner. He grabs him by his beard. Again, Rav Tuvi. Asa Abaya. Abaya tried doing the same thing. He's begging him. Like Shafki, this time he didn't listen to Abaya. I see. He had to go bring Miss Masra, the guy with the dikna. He had to go bring his scissors and cut off this magician's beard because he was holding on to it. He wasn't going to let go. Ahud, Amr the Chavisa, another fascinating ma'aser with the Chachma Rabbanah. A person said as follows: Chavisa the Afra lechaberoi. A barrel of dust should go to one son. Chavisa the Gamri lechaberoi. A barrel of bone should go to another son. Chavisa the Udra lechaberoi. And a barrel of cotton should go to the other son. Lamaisi died, and Lai Haviyadi my Karmalu. They weren't sure what is he talking about. So they went to the Chacham. Asik mider, but no, Amalu Isluchu Ara. Do you guys have land? Amalu in, yes. Isluchu Vasa. Do you guys have livestock? In. Isluchu Birstaki. Do you guys have quilts? In. This is what he was trying to tell you. Your Afer, your Afar is all the karka should go to one son. Your bones should go, is the animals, should go to a different son. And your quilts, the cotton, all the quilts should go to another son. There was a man, he overheard his wife talking to their daughter. His daughter was doing Maises Nus and she was publicizing it. And the mother was upset at her. And the mother tells the daughter, why are you talking about it? Stay quiet about your shurim. Your znus that you're doing. And she threw a remark about herself. She says, this woman, which she's talking about herself, Asara b'ni Isla. I have 10 sons. This woman has 10 sons. And all the other 9 out of 10 are mamzerim. V'afal pikein. The father, nobody knows about it. Kishachiv, this husband, heard the conversation when he died. Amalu, right before he died, said, Kol nichsi l'chad bra. All menachasr should go to only one son. Lo yadu liminai, they didn't know what to do. So asik medar bana, they didn't know which one, who he's talking about. Amalu, he says, Zilu chavaitu kever davuchain. Go and smash and bang your father's kever. Ad dekoyim megalachu, till he gets up and tells you who it belongs to. Lahai minaichu. So Shav Gav Zakulo, they all went. Ahu the Bara have a loss. There was one son that didn't go. Mamzerim, we all know, have a chutzpah. So they had no problem being chutzpah and knocking on the kever. But one more had sneeze. And that he said, Amalu Kula Nixi Dahai. And that everything belongs to that one son. Elamah, he's not the mamzer. Azlu Achlu Court, so they went in Malshin. All the other 9, the Mamzerim, the chutzpah, they have no problem. Azlu Achlu Court, Malka Amri, they said, Ika Gavachabay. There's one person in the Yidden. They come afik my money, meeting. He has no problem just taking away all our money. So they talk when to capture him. His wife saw it. She knew there was a Tamachacham. So she knew she's going to stumble then tell them something they're not going to understand, I have to call them out. Amar Lahu, so she comes and tells them, Abdechad Havali had a slave, Pashkal Reish, they cut his head, Ganavim, Upashkal Mishka, they peeled his hides, Va'achlubis, and they ate him of the Kambalim Maya, and they drink water, Umashkibe, the Chavra, and they even share this with their friends. They don't give me money. Great, they don't give me anything. So what is she talking about? An Evet cutting up its head? They had no clue it's flying. So we all know Rabbi Noah is the Chacham. Let's bring him out. And he'll tell us. Hey, you know what she's talking about? Zarnuka, a skin hide, that it was an animal. They cut its head, they skinned it, they used it as a jug, as a pitcher. And that's what he's saying. So they realize, they said, such a smart person, let him stand by the din, by the entrance of the Beis Din, and he'll take a paskin. And then, Chaza, Rabbi Noah saw that it said by the Sharei Glossis, it saw it on the doors, the entranceways. Chaza Davik Sibba Vula called Dayan. It said, it was a sign that said, called Dayan, the Miskri Ladin Lishmi Dayan. If a Dayan got called up, there was the jury, they had something against him. The halacha is if he got indicted, it's not a good Dayan because Elamai is a bad person. Amullah, it doesn't make sense. Elamata, every person, Asa Inish Ma'amad, you want to get your judge, what are you going to do on Chesem Beis? You're going to go make up a Baba Maisum, is Amazmul Ladina. Paslay, that doesn't add up. Elo, no, Kol Dayan, the Miskul Ladin, Umafkin Mimeine Mamayna. When Beis Din convicts him, when the judge and the jury all convict him, then it makes sense. But then Lavshmi Dayan. So the Taka wrote, the Kasu Hachi, they wrote Beram, however, they made like an addendum, they add another sheet. The Sabbath Yudoy Amri, which is Rav. But no, he says, Kol Dayan the Miskul Ladin, Umafkim, you name a money, but then Lavshmi Dayan. Another thing he saw was, Chazad Chsib Beroish, Kol Maisa Anadam. The head of all death is too much blood. Beroish Kol Chayin Anochamer. What am I? The head of all life? Wine. Elamati, no question. The Nafal Megro miss, the Nafal Medikal miss. Someone who falls off a tree or a roof and dies. Dama Katli had too much blood. The guy fell off the roof. It was slippery. Visu Mandid Achalamim, it's a person about to die. Mashkule Chamer, what is it like? CPR? You're going to give him wine? It's not going to work. This is what you should write. Beroish Komarin Anodam. All illnesses, where does it stem from? Too much blood. Beroish Kalasavon Anochamer. All the stuff that prevent all these stuff, illness. We all know you drink a cup of wine a day is very healthy for the heart. That's wine. So Katsu Hachi Beram, they take it, and then another den, the Sabbath Yud Amri, Beroish Kamarin, Anodam. Beroish Kalasaban Anochamer. However, they were Maisid, but Asur, the lesser Cham, if there's no wine in such a city, you know what happens? Tamar, Misvoi, Saman, and they all have to use up all these herbs to help them from all these illnesses because they didn't have wine to even prevent it. Ksiv, another thing that was written on the door of Pischa, the Kaputkia, it wasn't by Beis Din, it said, the Kaputkia, I think it's somewhere in Turkey, Anpik, Angbel, Intel. Said those three words that they all have the same shear. So for Gemara, what is the shear? Well, Ve'ezu Antel, once I know the shear of Antel, I can know what Anpik and Anbeg is. Zeu, Revi'ah Shal Torah, it's Revi'ah Salog, the Rashbam says it's a Beitza, Mechza, whether it's the 4 cases of Pesach that we drink it. In all those scenarios, that is the Revi'ah, so not Nazir, Pischayev, it's a Revi'ah, it's a Beitza now. Zok the Mishnah in Chesem Beis. HaMarzev ein lechazaka. Marzev, you have a gutter all around the roof, and then there's the piece, the sprout, the drain sprout where the gutter, the water comes out. HaMarzev ein lechazaka. However, yesh l'mekayim chazaka. We're going to see the Mishnah Zak and the Gemara is going to talk about this. What's that mean? How could it not have a chazaka with the mekayim? Yes. HaMeschilo, the gutter, however, yesh l'chazaka. Sulam HaMitzri. We're going to see all these Zaku, what all these halachas are. What is a Sulam HaMitzri ein lechazaka? V'letzuri yesh l'chazaka. The point is whenever something's small and easy and portable, it doesn't have a chazakah. Something that's substantial, that's big, it makes sense, so the person's makbid does have a chazakah. It's really how to term it, black and white, what makes sense, what doesn't. So sulam a mitzri ein lechazakah, l'tzuri yesh chazakah. Chaloin a mitzris ein lechazakah. L'tzuris, again, it's bigger than yesh lechazakah. What is a chaloin a mitzri? Ezi chaloin a mitzri is kol shein reisha shel adam yachal l'kanis l'seicha. It doesn't have room even for your head. It's so small, it's not going to have a chazakah. However, no matter how small it is, once you put on a frame around the window, it's considered chazaka. Dr. Gemara weiter. One in Chesem and Beis bottom. My hamarziv ein lechazaka. However, v'yesh lo mekayim chazaka. How does that make sense? And that the Gemara reviewed them a shmol hachikam. This is what it's saying. Hamarziv ein lechazaka. This little sprout ein lechazaka miruach achas. That means to say if you have a choice, the right or the left side, it doesn't have a chazaka where it is. However, yeshem chazaka m'shtei ruchos. That means to say I have a chazaka that on either side, you could decide which side you want it to go on. But avada for the drain spread, the bechlal be on the roof, I have a chazaka. Chanina amar marzim in the chazaka shemai aroch means katzroi. If it's long, you could cut it. The yeshem mekayim chazaka that you can't remove it completely. Shemal akrein aikrib. Yirmi Amma, the third teretz says. Amar Marziv Eila Chazako Shem writes to live nice tachta. If you want to build, the Chatz guy wants to build something underneath this gutter baina. V'yeshem Kaima Chazaka Shem Bala Ikra Eina Ikra cannot remove the entire thing. One Nutesam at Aleph Tanan Hamaschilo Yesh Chazaka. We're saying that what? A gutter itself has a chazaka because it says the Marziv doesn't have a chazaka. Mashma Zukter Shbam. One the testament out at the top of the helmet. Mashman the Nevada, the God has a chazaka. So correct tomorrow. According to the first two mahalchim, whether it's mekayim or you can cut the length or you get it for sure there, then we understand that it makes sense that a Gadar has that a maschila has a chazaka. Man Amar Shem Rotza Libnois Tachta Bainim. Man Nafkalimine. I don't understand. What's it mean you have a chazaka? What is it bothering the gutter guy? If you build underneath, it doesn't make a difference. And that Gemara says, you know what we're talking about? A very specific gutter. He made it out of stones. On that, the gutter, the Bala gutter, the Bala Maschila could say, I don't want you to build underneath. Why? Because we already learned this earlier in the Masechta that the vibrations, Avada Kashter, the gutter itself, since it's made out of stones, therefore he has a tiny that I don't want you to build underneath. Amr Rav Yehuda, Amr Shmuel. Now we're going to talk about, is it a two-way street or not? Does the Bala Chatzar also have a tiny that I don't let you remove your gutter? I want that water. What's the matter with that water? Either to feed my animals with that water. It's good water, it's rainwater. Let's see it inside. Amr Rav Yehuda, Amr Shmuel, Tzina Mekalech, Ma'im L'Chatzar Chaver. Ubal Bala Gag, now the Bala Gag wants to shut it off. Let's say from Bala Chatzar Ma'akalov. Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Shmuel wants to say it could be ma'akev da amaleki hechi dat kanis lachatz edidi lemishtabei maya. Just like you got this chutz to pour the water in. Ledina amikani li maya deigrach. I want this water to feed my animals, and that was part of my cheshbon of letting you buy off the chutzim. Itmar Rav Aishia Amar ma'akev. Rav Aishia, the son of Rav Chama, said you could be ma'akev the balak chatzar. Rav Chama, his father, said ain't ma'akev. Ozil Shailer Bisa. Who was Bisa? He was the grandfather, the Zayda. Amalahu Ma'akev. He said like the grandson. On that, Karala Ram Bacham, I'm assuming he was a brother. And he says, there were three generations, a grandfather, father, and a son. Who is this? You had three generations, and Tosis is Maisiv. What the Chashuv of Chotam Sholish is that Hainu Taimo Lafisha Shloshton, Ra'u Zezeh, they're all in the same generation, same time living. That itself is the schos of a chotam sholosh. One of the two da'at sulam hamitzri ein like chazaka. Zaktig mar hechadam sulam mitzri. What is the sulam mitzri? I'm the Rabbi Yanai kol she'ein like arba chabak, and it doesn't have four rungs. That is considered portable. It's very easy. Doesn't chazaka. Chaloy mitzri ein like chazaka. Frakting mar ma'ishno gabe sulam deloy mefarish. Ma'ishno gabe chaloy de mefarish. If you look at the Mishnah, we're mefarish the window. On that, the Muzak Namar Mishum the Gavai, the Flugui, Rabbi Yehuda B'Sefer, since we want to say the Machlekes of Yehuda, where he talks about the window, and he says, as a frame, we may we're Mefarish it. Amr Ab Zera. Now we're going to talk about where the window is. If it's higher than Dalan Amas, the Chayr, we should assume that there's no problem of the Bala Chatzar seeing into the person's house, because it's too high to see into the person's house. Amr Ab Zera, L'matim Dalan Amos, the window under Dalan Amos, within Dalan Amos of your eyesight when you're on the ground, Yisha Chazaka. It would have a chazaka, therefore we yochel limchais. Lemalam arba amois ein lechazaka, because it's so high up, and you can't be any yochel limchais. You have no right to be meicher. Rabbi Loi Amar afilu lemalam arba amos ein lechazaka. However, we yochel limchais. So the Gemara's understanding. Maybe the machlokes says leim bekoven amida stoim kamifikli. The Mar Savar Reb Zera that says that a person can be meicher. He holds that a person cannot be meicher. Kaifin, we force you not to act like Midas Shadayim. What do you have to lose? Why are you to be meicher? What are you losing? Umar Sabar says ain't kaifin. So that's what we thought the machlokes is. Then the Gemara says loy the kula am kaifin. So what's the machlokes of Reb Zera v'shani hacha? The Amalei Reb Eloi wants to say that a person can tie a zimnin the mesevish shifra. Sometimes you'll bring a bench to sach the kayamis, and you're going to stand on the bench like that. You can see into my house. However, Reb Zera the Rashbam says A person doesn't have the chutzpah to do such a thing, therefore he cannot be meicha. Who does the k'midei Rabba? He shad the k'midei Rabba mamo. He said the Rabba mamo. Amalei Kabbalah that in a chanami he held like Kabbalah that even the malam dal amitz doesn't have chazak and he can be meicha. Shmuel, however, v'la ayra for the light afilu kol shu yeshel chazak because a person knows that he always going to need a light and therefore he's going to have a chazak. Zok the Mishnah. His which is a beam at tefach yesh loy chazak. Someone has a kaisel samel chatz chaver and he takes out a beam. So up to tefach. He has a chazaka, v'yachal limchas wa'anu tasam basic. Therefore, it can be meicha. Pachas mitefach, something that's less than a tefach the beam. Ein la chazaka, ve'ein la chazaka. Let's say a little small nail that he wants to hang up stuff on. Vavada, it's not a chazaka. Dr. Mara Mavasi Amar Rabbi, Mani v'amila Samsam Rabbi Yaakov Amar Rabbi, Mani hichzik betefach, hichzik bedalit. Now we're assuming the person was had a chazaka just for tefach the beam, even though it's 1 inch long, 1 tefach long, he gets dalit. Mara, my comment, how could that be? Why should you get, just because you're machzik, 1 tefach to get out? Amar Bai Hachi Kamar. Hichzik roichiv tefach, memeshech harbov. You have 1 inch wide, 4 inches long. The halacha is hichzik roichiv harbov. We can make it now from 4 to 4, and we give you taka another 3 tefach. The Mishnah says, Pachas mitefach, ein lechazak of ein yochel limchas. Amar Avuna lashanu lebal agag bebal achatzer. Can't be meicha bal achatzer bebal agag yochel limchas. Because then Avadi can say it's Hezekri of Rabbi Yehuda Amar, feel about Chatzer Balagag, any Yachol Limchais. So now we have Machlekes, the more than the sons. Leim Behezekri Akamiflgi. The Mar Savar of Huna Hol Shmei Hezek. Therefore he can be Meicha. Umar Savar, Rabbi Yehuda is going to hold life Shmei Hezek. And then the Mar says, Lei, the Kulam Shmei Hezek. So what's the Chiluk? Shani Achud Amalei Litashmish Aleichazi. I'm only using it for a hook. And in a Chanam, we're going to even, we know already, we learned it earlier, you have to build a Mechitza. Every Balagag has to build a Mechitza Sar Tvach. So all he's doing is putting something on the hook. He's not going to look at the chatzir. V'idach, my chaz. Why? V'shani yachad amal tashmish alei chazi. Why? L'may chazi. I don't need it for tashmish. The only thing why I need it is le'mitla be'midi. The only hook to put something on the hook. Mahadrina apai betelina bay. All I'm going to do is look away while I put on the hook. V'idach amalei no. You know what you're going to say? Zimnan de be'isas. You're going to say I was scared. I didn't want to fall. And the Rashban says even in a case where you weren't scared, but you're going to tiny you were scared. So in such a case. Avada, person can be Mike. Why the Mishnah in the Testament base? La yiftach adam chalanaisa lechatza shut. The person cannot open a window lechatza shut. Lokach bais bechatza cheres leif techena bechatza shut. Bon aliyah gabe beisai. A person cannot leif techena lechatza shut. The person has aliyah in the house. He can't add another door. All these cases, the reason why it's lechatza shut is because you're adding traffic. Therefore, avada, it's also. If you want, bainis achatza lefnim beis, you can do it in your house. And the Rashban says the reason why that's mutter is because you have a recht to put as many people in your house as long as you're not adding an entrance, not a problem. So my area lechatza shutfin. Why you have to tell me lechatza shutfin? Stamazai. I feel lechatza chaver nami loy. And that thing says no. Loy mivay kamar. Loy mivay lechatza chaver de loy. It's partial your friends chatza you can't. Av lechatza shutfin da amalei you would say saif. What do you care? Either way, you have to hide away. You have to be tzenua from me b'chatz. Kamash malani can tell him ad in the b'chatz have a minus tuminach. Until now, only when you were in the chatzar. Hashta feel b'bayis nami minus tuminach. Even when I'm in my house, I have to hide away from you. And that the reason is because now you have another door. Therefore, I'm going to have to hide. Therefore, it's considered a hezek kriya. Tanur Rabbana Ma'isa ba'adamecha chepasach halanaisav l'chatzah shotin abalef ne'mishmal Rabbi Yaisi. And then he told him, Amalei chzakta b'ni chzakta yitaka b'gud chazaka, because he held la'alta have a chazaka, and therefore, since the person was quiet, it's considered a good chazaka. However, ubalef ne'rabchi, he didn't like this psak. He went to Rechia, Ama yagata pesachta. You tore the way and opened up this window. Yagav esasim. You don't have a chazaka. You have to close it off. Amar Rav Nachman v'listoim la'alter have a chazaka. If a person, the Rashbam says one samachom at aleph, if a person puts a wall against the window for gimel shana b'chatzah shutfim, a person had a window for chatzah shana, he has a chazaka. In such a case, a person comes and puts a wall against that window. Zok Gemara have a chazak shein ad adam asir shesaismin ayur b'fanav shaisik. A person will not stay quiet by you taking away his light. And the Rashban says something very interesting. It's dafka. Where is you shaisik? In a scenario where you got the whole chazaka, your whole ride is like Kechesas Gimel Shanim having that window. It's mashma from the Rashbam. I'm not 100% sure this halacha is true, but it's mashma from the Rashbam that in a chanaf, if a person has edim, that he bought the schus for this window, then we won't say that ein adam asur shesaismin, that a person's quiet. Maybe in a chanami he's going to have to move the wall. Sounds like that from the Rashbam, because he says the only scenario is when that elamai you never really had a chazak. One samach amad aleph lokach bayis b'chatza acheres loif techen el chatza shut. Frak the my time, what's takab shot? And then the Gemara says, "Maybe shemar balin sederch, you're causing more traffic. Now, it's therefore in a chanami there's more yaitzim in nechnasin, and therefore it's a problem." Frak the Marim Aseifa on the Mrotzah. Bainis achadil ifnim bebeis. So what's the help? The Mishnah says, if you want, you got to put up an attic. Bain aliyah gabe beis. V'alay mar balin sederch. It doesn't make a difference. He's still adding more people in. Ravuna no my chedi. You know what a room is? Shechalku b'shnayim. You didn't add any square footage. You took the room and all you did was put a wall. You made it into two rooms. Umay aliyah after all you did was again you made it, it's like a yitzia, it's a little compartment. In such a case, again, you didn't do any square footage, and therefore, since you have a rech to put as many people in your house, the lashon Rashbam is yesh lo rishus yochel amalas kol beis dir, and I can fill my house with people. So what's the difference if I put a wall or not? Therefore, I have a chazak. Zok the Mishnah la yiftach adam l'chatzah shutfen. A person should not do into the chatzah shutfen what? Pesach keneged Pesach. Doors, windows against each other. Hayakatan, if it's small, don't make it big. Echad, shnayim. However, Shusarabim, everything's motor, Pesachul, Shusarabim, Pesach, Keneged Pesach. V'chaloin, Keneged Chaloin. Hayakatan, Isas, Gadol, the Echad, Shnayim. It's not a problem since they're Shusarabim. Zakting Mara Minani Milu, we didn't know the Salacha, then in Chatzah Shut, you shouldn't do these stuff. Rabbi Yechon and Amakra, we all know by Bilam. Very famous Gemara of Matoivu, Elecha, Yaakov, Isa, Bilam, is enough. And he looks up at Yaris Yisrael Sheichel Shvatim. He sees how the Klai is living, and he decides to bless them. Amat Taivu. Zaktimar Mara. What did he see already? They should bless Klai Yisrael. Ra Shein Pischa Elem Chuvanim Zelazeh. Amar Bilam said, Ruina Lalu Shetisha Elem Shechina. From here we see how important it is. Tznius that even Bilam Avad gave us such a bracha. Hayakaton Lo Yasen Gadol. You don't make it bigger. Savar Amachav Lamimar. That if it's Bar Dalit, if it's the Pesach is Dalit. Amas, loy l'shavye bar tamani. You can't make it 8 amas. Why? The koshakol tamani b'chatzah. We learned earlier that if a person has a pesach 8 amas, why? He gets 8 amas in the chatzah. However, bar tarti l'shavye bar ba sharpadami. If I have a pesach, it's only 2 amas. I either way get a schus no matter what. The minimum of chatzah is 4 amas, so it doesn't make a practical implication. There's no nafkamino. Amalei ravano. Matzi amalei pepischa zutro. When it's a small pesach, matzina l'snuminach. Pepischa rabba. Now that it's big, loy. Metzina, it's much harder for me to avoid you. Very similar to Gemara. Some Ramacham when it's Dalad Amos Shavi Trey Bani Tarti. You can't divide it up into 2 separate Pesachs. Why they call Shoko Tamni Mechatza? Because every Pesach gets Dalad Amos. Ava Bar Tamni, if it's ready at Amos, Shavi Bnei Arboy Shavi Dami. As long as to make a Pesach that's 8 Amos, that either way getting 8 Amos in the Chatz, it's not a problem to divide it into 2 because the Amos in the Chatz is not changing. And that Amalei Ravano Matzi Amalei Bechapisa Matzina Let's do Minach. Betray loy metzina stun menach. Zok the mara pesach lushus ram pesach keneged pesach the amalek. Tell him soif a boys it's nuim name shus ram. You have to hire shus ram. Zok the Mishnah ein oisen chalol tachas shus rabim. Bayray sichlim mars. We saw this Gemara at the end of loy yachmer and chavzainu and Beis that a person cannot dig into shus rabim. Rabbi Lezer, matter, why? As long as you protect it enough that a wagon full of rocks is not going to break. Another halach is zizim ketrois. You can't put these ledges and these balconies in Shus Rabbim. What you could do is, you might see in a chanami, you'll take your wall, put it deeper into your space, and then put a porch. Look, a chutzner. What happens if you buy a chutzner? Buzz zizim ketrois. You see, there's already a balcony there. We can assume that he was and that's how he did it. Rabbanan, what Rabbanan says that a person is not allowed to do this chalacha. According to Rabbanan, he made it strong, and that we saw Zimnin the mafchis falavadaita. We all know with infrastructure they always wake up too late when the damage is done, so we can assume that it already got rotted, and by the time that will happen is it's going to be too late. Hey, my team zizim kushtrois. Mara's going to say Meiser of Ami Avalei Zuza. He had taken this ledge. Davin Afik Lumavo was going into the Mavoi. Who Gavin Ami Havalei? He had Oshus around the person in the earth. Also had a Ziza. However, instead of the Mavoi, it was in Rishus Harab. Davin Mafil Kushus Harab. Have a Kamakvel Eben Rishus Harab, and Rishus Harab was very upset. So Asik made their Abami. And Abami said, Amalei Zil Kites, you have to take remove it. Amalei Amar Nami Yisla, who are you? You used to have one. And then he answered, no. It's going into only into Mavoi. So maybe one Mechalin. the Mavi has the right to be Meichel for me. Gabay Didach, L'Shus Rabbim, Mapik, Man, Machul Gabach. Who is their Shus Rabbim? They don't have their Shus Rabbim, it's not Meichel you. Therefore, you must remove it. Rabbi Yanai, very Geshmak Gemara, Rabbi Yanai, Havalei Elon, Hanoit L'Shus Rabbim. He had the tree going to Shus Rabbim. Havahu Gavar, the Havalei Nami Elon, Hanoit L'Shus Rabbim. And we're going to see exactly what the Svara's back and forth was. Mikar myself, L'Basayf myself. But L'Maisa, this person also had a tree in Shus Rabbim. Also, B'nei Shus Rabbim, have a Kamakvi Yilove, they were talking Meichel. On this person, they went to Rabbi Yanai. Amalei went Samacham and Beis. He tells him, Zillah, go home. Come back. Let me think about it. But Laila, that night, Shader Katzi Lahudi day, he went and sent the shliach to cut the tree. Lamacha, when the person came back like he was told, also Kamei, and Taka went Amalei Zil Kites. You had to go remove the tree. Amalei Amar Nami Yisla. You Rabbi Yanai also have the tree. Who are you to tell me? Amalei Zil Chazi. Go check. If mine's removed, you also have to remove it. Then no problem. But mine, you'll see is cut. So frektik mara mi carver myself. What was he thinking in the beginning? What was he thinking of myself? Why did he wait overnight? And that's the mara mi carver sava nichlu b'nei shusarab and the yasbutule. He understood. He thought the island was quiet, not because of his covet as a tamachachim, rather because they appreciated the shade. But once he saw the kivin the chazal kamakvi, he realized they're only staying quiet because of his covet. But rather they bats him and not happy about it. Shad the katsi. Merely he sent to cut it down. Why don't you just go cut your move? Now I chop what happened. I'll talk in and cut it. And that very geshmak, a famous Gemara. Mishum dereish lakish the Amar is kaishashu v'kaishashu. Kshoit la'atzmecha v'ach la'acher. Before you do anything, before you anoint yourself, clean yourself of errors before you give me musr. Very geshmak. Avam ratzah zok Gemara at the two dots koinis sach shaloi. You might see. And the zizin echnami could go in and be might see. Ibailu. What happens? Lamaisa, you were planning on putting it into it, you put it into the rishos, into your rishos more, but you never ended up doing these ledges. Can you put back either, we're going to see either means the wall, put it back where you want it to be, or the ledges. You have no problem. You didn't lose your schos. Now you can take out these zizin. We're assuming that even the ledges you can't put out because of its chusha. Kula amos that you can move these ledges. The shilas you can put back the kaisel. The if chayit mar Yechanan says adra eina maxi can't put the kaisel back or shlokish am maxi. What's the machlekes? Yechanan eina maxim shum the viuda dam reviuda meitzach shechzika by rabbim asal kalkuloi. Therefore, you can't go back. You already lost her. That's by a maitzer. Hacha, we're talking about Shusarama, Ikar, Avacha, since plenty of room. Therefore, you could be machzer. Laka, Chatzer, Bazizim, Kustarois, Harei, Bechazkasa, has a chazak. Amar Avuna, Nafla, even if it falls Chazra by nice, so you could rebuild it. Neis, Efrek Mara, we learned regarding the Churban Misamigdash, Rasur, and Halachas, that says, Aim is Saidi, not allowed to put plaster, Aim is Chayrin. The Rishbam says you do this plaster with sewers in that plaster. They or do drawings itself as manazeh because of Churban Misamigdash. However, Laka Chatzer, once you buy a Chatzer, Misiyadis, Michveres, Mifchetz, already has all this. Harezu, Bechazkasa. So we say, and now we're assuming Chazaka is that this house was built before the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. But Nafla, Afa Pikein, Ein Chayzer by Naisa. So just like over there, once it's knife, you lose the Chazaka. Who the Nach over here, you should lose the Chazaka of these, of this Chos of the Kaisel. And that Gemara says Yisur Shani has nothing to do with whether we assume or before the Beis Hamikdash fell or after. Rather, it's Bechlal and Isser to do it because of Churban Beis Hamikdash. Now that I bought the house, it has it there, we stick it, we stay where it is. But once Avada falls, you shouldn't do that. There's an Isser to do it in time Churban Beis Hamikdash. Taner Rabbanon, La Yisad Adam, it's basically said a person should not do his house with plaster. However, because of the Churban Beis Hamikdash, from Erev Beichal, once you mix it with sand, like Tevin, with straw, mutter. However, Rabbi Yehuda argues even though it gets less white, the sand, that's why it's mutter. It becomes stronger, the asr. Tevin, however, straw of other doesn't, all it does is ruin it, mutter. After the second Beis Hamikdash, Rabbi Prushim Yisrael Shalalecha Basra they stopped eating meat and drinking wine. Nitva line Rav Shur engaged them. Amar lebni mipnei ma'i atem oichlin basa. Why are you not eating meat? Vein atem shaitzin yain. Amar loi noichel basa. How can we eat meat? Shemimene rakivin agabim mezbeach va'ach shabato. We can't do that. Nishta yain shemin nachschen agabim mezbeach va'ach shabato. We can't do that. Amar leim kain. If so, I'll tell you, don't eat bread. Lechem loi noichel shekvar not from kvar batel menachos. You'll tell me, and they say nechanami, but we can have pears. After pears, no pears loi noichel shekvar batel bikurim. And that extra Pesach Aaron, it's not the Zayminim, it's not Bikurim, you can eat it. Lamaisa, he slugged them up by saying, don't drink water. Maim lo nishta shekar bit on Nisachamayim. By Sukkot, where we do Nisachamayim. Shasku, then they realized they were stumped. It doesn't make sense what they're saying. I can't tell you, we had the Gzeira. So what you do, you can only do a Gzeira if the Rav Tzibah can handle us. How do we know this? You are with the curse of Oisi Atem, you still curse me, yet you rob me. What is this talking about? It's talking about a cloth they were makabel on themselves, Klai, so it was makabel to bring all the mice to the base of Eitzitz. It's a langam, Arichas, and Malachi. And the point is that they accepted on the Gzeira, and Avad, if they wouldn't be able to handle this, the Tzibah wouldn't be able to handle this Gzeira of putting the mice in the Eitzah, Avad would never be makabel klala. So from there we see that a person that ain't goes in Gzeira Tzibah unless we can handle it. What a person should do is Adam is Beis Misid, when you build a nice house, you should leave a place for Kama Hamach, Rav Yosef Amal Ama, square Amal. Rav Chizda Keneged the Pesach has to be in front of the door frame. We saw the Rashbam earlier where it talked about this, that Avad if it's not Keneged the Pesach has to be even more than Amal Ama. Ois Adam called Tzar Chisuda. Umeshayir davar muat. What is that thing you leave over? Mayim or papa kisa the harsna fried fish. I say isha tukotach shiteo. Umeshayir davar muat. You leave something. Mayim or amarav basido is like more of like a razor for the hair on the temple on their forehead. Shenamar, like it says, Emeshkarchech Yerushalayim. If you get Yerushalayim tishkech yimini. Tedbak l'shayni l'chiki. A stung is going to be stuck in the roof of the mouth. We go. Mayal roitzim chasi. It says roitzim chasi. We all know this, what we do by chasanim. The Efer, Maklish Rosh Chasanim, we put it on the chasan's head, Efer. Where did we put this? Efer, B'makim Tefillin. We all put it over there where we put on a Tefillin. Shenemar, Losum, La'avle Tzia, and Losum Lahem, Per, Tachas Efer. Which you all know is the Tefillin. It says, there's Bram brings there, Percha, Chava Shalechem. V'chol Amisav Yerushalayim, Zoiche V'roya B'simchasa, Shenemar, Simchu is Yerushalayim v'goyim. Tanya, Amar Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha miyoyim shechar v'beis hamikdash dinu shenigzar letzmeinu shaloi lecho basar loy lishtesayim. Betzim shouldn't eat meat or drink wine. Ela ein geizing gzeir letzibra ela inkein roy v'tzibra yachayil l'namabo. Umiyoyim sheposh the machas rosh where the Romish gazer selenu gzeir srois akashos. Umivatelas mimena Torah mitzvahs. They don't let us learn Torah. They manachas oisanu. Likonis, Lishavua ben, which is a bris milah, V'amrila, some say Yeshua ben, which is a pidina ben, V'dinu, Shenigzar, Lalatzmeinu, Shaloi Lisa, Isha, V'loi Lebanim, we shouldn't get married and have kids. V'nimtzu zer, Shalai Ravinu, what's going to happen is Cholam Eila, V'lahanach, Lehem, L'Yisrael, Moto, Shiyu Shoygin, V'ayu Mazidin, the Rishban says, Dimishom, Delo, Yuchlu, Lamed Bot. Therefore, when a geyser, Hadran Allah, Cheska Sabatim, Hadran Allah, and Yetz Hashem next week, we're going to pick up with the Meiches Abayis, Daf Samech Aleph, Amud Aleph.